On Monday, 19th August 2022, the Prime Minister declared, "The economy looks good. It's like trying to put out a house fire with a glass of water and saying, well, the fire's out in this glass, so..." Papua New Guineans aren't just facing a cost of living crisis, they're staring into the abyss of an economic black hole. Businesses are fleeing faster than politicians from accountability, and the only thing rising faster than inflation are the eyebrows of anyone trying to buy groceries. So, buckle up, because we're about to dissect the economic carcass of this country and see what's really going on. Spoiler alert, it's not pretty. Let's talk about the exchange rate, shall we? That beautiful, fragile thing that dictates how much kina we need to throw at the rest of the world to get what we need. Right now, one Papua New Guinean kina will get you a whopping 19 US cents. You need a fistful of kina just to smell a single US dollar these days. What does this mean for the average Papua New Guinean? Imported goods are about as affordable as a private island. Remember when you could buy a chocolate bar without needing a second mortgage? Those days are gone. And it's not just luxury items, we're talking basic necessities here. Medicine, fuel, food, all of it tied to a currency that's decided to take a nosedive into a vat of devaluation. Now you might be thinking, surely the government's doing something about this, right? Well, let's just say their idea of economic stimulus involves throwing a bucket of cold water on the economy and hoping it magically turns into ice cream. The problem is, a weak kina makes it incredibly unattractive for foreign investors. A weak kina leads to higher import costs, which leads to inflation, which further weakens the kina, and around we go. So next time you hear someone say, the economy looks good, remember this: for whom? Okay, let's move on to everyone's favorite topic, debt. Specifically, the mountain of debt that's currently casting a very large, very real shadow over our collective future. We're talking about over 66 billion kina in debt, folks. That's not a typo. That's enough money to make even the most financially irresponsible among us break out in a cold sweat. To put that into perspective, imagine a stack of 100 kina bills reaching the moon. Now imagine someone borrowed that entire stack, spent most of it on things that didn't really improve our lives, and now we're all stuck paying it back with interest. Welcome to the wonderful world of national debt. Our debt to GDP ratio is currently hovering above 52%. That means our debt is more than half the size of our entire economy. In just 5 short years, the current administration has managed to borrow over 34 billion kina. It's like they're playing a real-life game of Monopoly, but instead of going bankrupt, they're bankrupting the entire country. This level of debt isn't just irresponsible, it's downright dangerous. So, the next time you hear a politician talk about economic growth, remember this: it's easy to inflate numbers on paper, but it's a lot harder to hide the reality of a nation drowning in debt. Now, let's talk about everyone's favorite party guest, inflation. That delightful phenomenon where the prices of everything skyrocket faster than a SpaceX rocket, while your purchasing power plummets faster than a lead balloon. According to our government, inflation is sitting pretty at a manageable 5.5%. But let's be real, folks. Walking through a supermarket these days feels less like a shopping trip and more like an armed robbery. The truth is, the real inflation rate is much higher than what's being reported. It's like trying to measure the temperature of a volcano with a meat thermometer. So how do they manage to make inflation disappear like a politician's conscience during an election year? Well, it's a magical little trick called manipulating statistics and creative accounting. The government is actively contributing to inflation through its reckless money printing spree at the central bank. This blatant disregard for basic economic principles is creating a perfect storm of rising prices and eroding purchasing power. And the worst part? The government seems content to sit back and watch this economic train wreck unfold. They're fiddling while Rome burns, except in this case, Rome is our economy, and the fiddle is their complete lack of a coherent plan. The true cost of inflation is being borne by the people, not by those who are supposed to be looking out for our best interests. The kina's devaluation is more than just numbers on a screen. It's the eroding purchasing power of every Papua New Guinean. It's the struggle to afford basic necessities, the despair of watching your hard-earned wages evaporate before your eyes. The government's economic policies, or lack thereof, have created a breeding ground for uncertainty and instability. Foreign investors are losing confidence, businesses are fleeing, and the people are left to pick up the pieces. This isn't just an economic crisis, it's a crisis of leadership, a failure to deliver on the most basic promise of governance, to create a better future for its people. It's time for the government to stop with the smoke and mirrors and start addressing the real issues plaguing our nation. It's time for transparency, accountability, and a genuine commitment to steering this country out of this economic storm.